Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay's two main school boards say they're ready to welcome students and staff back into the classroom on Monday. However, a local teachers union is questioning just how safe the Ford government has made those classes, and he's predicting another shutdown before too long. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Ontario classrooms will be filled with students come Monday, something welcomed by most teachers and students alike. But there is worry that continually high case numbers will creep into schools despite the recent announcements by the province.
Students are going to, and staff are going to have to isolate if they're symptomatic, so we anticipate there'll be a lot of student absenteeism. So, concerns will be around programming for our students that are going to be off isolating. And obviously staff are going to be off and we're going to have staff shortages, and we're really concerned that we might not be able to fill those vacancies and we may not be able to run some of our classes.
The idea that Ford is removing contact tracing, testing, reporting, the fact that class sizes are still large, that he's setting up schools to unfortunately close probably within a short order once they reopen again, which is unfortunate and is completely unnecessary.
It will take between 30 and 40% of students to be absent before parents are notified of an outbreak. For other settings, 2 COVID-positive individuals is enough to determine an outbreak. Capello says it's one of many double standards seen in moves by the education minister.
You have students of 20, 25, and 30 who will be going into a classroom, eating lunch unmasked, maybe multiple times a day, and you can't even go into a restaurant and dine in person. So explain to me how one is safe and the other is not.
The Lakehead School Board has received 23 HEPA filter units from the allotted 3,000, and the Catholic Board is expected to get 20. Both boards have already received rapid tests for staff and students, but Lakehead Education Director Ian McRae hopes there will eventually be more than the 2 per student and staff they're being provided.
Certainly a rapid test would be a step up and would provide us with an increased sense of security going forward. So we're hoping that it'll become a sort of the norm rather than the exception, and people will get used to doing it on a pretty regular basis.
McRae and Tassone agree that increased vaccination for students will be the most effective at fighting outbreaks. They are ready and willing to set up school vaccination sites when they get the call to do so. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Okay, so let's hear directly from government officials now. Today, they laid out the plan for Monday's return to schools, but there's already been some pushback, as you heard there, particularly over the plan to only notify parents of a COVID-19 outbreak if 30% of students or staff are marked absent. The province's chief medical officer of health does say, however, that parents will still have the tools and ability to decide whether to keep their kids at home.
The empowerment capacity is having the tests in your home. If your child screens to have symptoms compatible with COVID-19, you have, and they're rapid antigen tests, you have an answer very quickly that empowers the parent to make the decision to keep their child home and to follow the guidelines of monitoring for 5 days. If symptoms are severe, there's obviously an opportunity to seek health care.
Education Minister Stephen Lecce says the province will give out 2 rapid antigen tests to all students and staff on the first day back to help them screen for the virus.
Staff and students will receive 2 tests each as an initial supply, with over 3.9 million rapid tests shipped to schools as we speak, ready for January 17th. These tests are for use when symptomatic, as outlined in the updated school and childcare screener that has been strengthened. We will continue to expand access to rapid antigen tests for parents, for students and staff. And these tests will be made available for students in public secondary schools on a need basis. And more tests will be available in the coming weeks so that we can help limit the spread of COVID in our learning environments.
The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting another outbreak at Hogarth Riverview Manor, this time in the Daffodil 1N resident home area. 3 people there have tested positive. And a hospital official has also confirmed an outbreak on the Regional Health Sciences Centre's Adult Mental Health Unit. Meanwhile, 1 additional COVID-19 patient has been admitted to the regional over the last 24 hours, but the number of patients in the ICU has gone down.
There are now 28 COVID patients hospitalized at the Regional Health Sciences Centre.
But the number of COVID patients in the ICU has fallen from 3 to 2. Overall hospital occupancy now sits at 98.5%, while the overall ICU capacity, which includes non-COVID patients, is at nearly 82%. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 125 new infections. 114 of those come from the Thunder Bay area. There are now 353 active cases. There are 19 new cases coming from the Northwestern Health Unit. The NWHU now has 346 active cases. On the vaccination front, the Thunder Bay District Health Unit has now surpassed 300,000 total shots given out. More than 12,400 doses were administered last week. The vast majority of those, more than 11,700, were booster shots. More than 81% of people aged 5 and up are now fully vaccinated with at least 2 doses. During the recent cold snap, services like Shelter House and the Care Bus played a key role in protecting people from extreme temperatures. But with the shelter now in the midst of a COVID-19 outbreak, officials there are trying to walk the tightrope of protecting their clients from the cold as well as the pandemic. Kurt Black reports.
Officials at the Shelter House confirmed on Wednesday that one more individual at the facility has tested positive for COVID-19. That brings the total cases to 5, with another 15 people currently in isolation. And Shelter House Executive Director Michelle Jordan expects more cases to arise before the situation is back under control.
With this variant, we know that it tends to spread like wildfire, so we're expecting to see more cases from the numbers that originated.
Through contract tracing, it is believed the virus entered the shelter last week with one of their clients. A room inside the shelter is now being used as an isolation area for anyone experiencing symptoms. This is the second COVID outbreak at the shelter since the beginning of the pandemic, but whereas last outbreak was during the summer, this one comes during one of the coldest weeks of the winter so far, a time when the less fortunate really need shelter from the conditions, making for an even more dire situation.
You know, the last time we had the outbreak, the weather was much warmer and we had overflow spaces for people. We're not that lucky this time, and we don't have extra staff that we can draw from at the isolation center like we did last year. So it's a different situation. It's very cold. We don't want to leave people outside. That is a bigger risk right now than COVID.
Meanwhile, the care bus run by Northwest Community Health Centers for the vulnerable population has been very busy during the most recent cold stretch. The bus provided health and social supports to over 1,200 individuals in its first month back on the streets. Taking it a step further, care bus staff have begun doing more to combat the rise of Omicron by offering vaccination clinics to the clients on board.
Knowing that, vaccination is still a really important part of, trying to keep people safe, as we've actually implemented vaccination clinics on the bus. And part of that as well that comes with that is educating individuals about why the importance of vaccination and wearing your personal protective equipment and supplying them with those resources.
To this point, over 40 clients have received vaccinations through the Care Bus initiative. Kurt Black, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Police have joined the investigation into the cause of an apartment fire that broke out this morning on the city's south side. Thunder Bay Fire Rescue responded around 8:15 to reports of a fire and smoke coming from a ground floor apartment located at 777 Kingsway. Fortunately, fire crews were able to extinguish the blaze before it was able to spread to other units. The tenant of the apartment was checked by paramedics on scene and was found to be suffering from smoke inhalation. Thunder Bay Police were on scene this afternoon. Fire officials say police have taken control of the apartment while an investigation into the cause takes place. It's officially 2022 budget season at City Hall with 8 meetings scheduled over the next month. The first of which, last night, focused on Thunder Bay's long-range financial overview. City staff outlined key elements and presented future budget forecasts. Vasilios Bellos has the numbers.
The virtual meeting kicked off the annual budget discussions, which ultimately decide where the city's money will be spent in 2022. Thunder Bay's tax levy increase is proposed to be 2.29% after growth, which is the 4th lowest out of the 5 largest cities in Northern Ontario. There was concern amongst council if any one-time revenue coming into Thunder Bay would be lowering the levy, causing a misleading figure. Director of Financial Services Emma Westover provided some insight.
I can confirm that there is no one-time revenue being used to reduce the levy this year. There is some minimal one-time revenue that was specifically applied for as one-time, that's offsetting some additional one-time increases to the budget. So the levy is not impacted.
Discussions also looked at some of the biggest employers in Thunder Bay, and the city itself is once again high on that list. City Manager Norm Gale addressed some of the complaints he hears from the public surrounding the significant number of people employed by the municipality.
I provide assurances, council, to you now that the size of our workforce is directly related to the services and programs that we provide. That is the relationship, and that is how we get to the workforce that we have.
Other major employers in the city include the local school boards and the regional hospital. Also explained during the presentation was where exactly municipal taxes are going. Public safety, including police, fire, and EMS, are the most significant, with public works, including roads, transit, and waste collection, a fairly distant second. The infrastructure gap, also a hot topic, with Budget Chair Mark Bent saying until it's dealt with, it will cost the city financially.
That's what I'll be pushing for as we move forward. I really think we have to address that infrastructure gap and stop buying new stuff and building new legacy projects.
Budget talks resume Thursday evening with the public pre-budget meeting. Council will then have 5 meetings to discuss the various items before approval on February 7th. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Last month's Parade of Lights was a huge success, according to local organizers, with the highest fundraising total in nearly 20 years. 116 trucks and other brightly lit vehicles paraded down the usual route on the night of December 4th. The event raised nearly $40,000 for local charities. The local branch of Autism Ontario, the George Jeffrey Children's Foundation, Special Olympics Thunder Bay, and the Therapeutic Riding Association each received roughly a $9,000 share of the proceeds. Greg Stevenson has been chair since 2003 and says this is the most money raised in that time.
The people that are able are maybe feeling a little more generous because this year Christmas was kind of back to normal maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's phenomenal that the amount of support that we have from the business community, from organizations, and just from the people that we're watching. It's really great.
This has always been our biggest fundraiser, and so the fact that we almost got 9,000 is even bigger for us. So the Thunder Bay and region is where the money's going to go.
The next Parade of Lights is scheduled to take place this upcoming December 3rd. Organizers hope to continue the momentum coming off such a successful campaign. A Balmertown resident whose tourist camp has been hit hard by the global pandemic is celebrating a $2 million lottery win. Ronald Brownlee has been playing the lottery for the last 40 years and took the top prize in the Ontario 49 draw on New Year's Day. He calls the win during this tough time an unbelievable blessing. He plans to invest most of his winnings, and some of that will go back into his business. Brownlee says he also plans to treat himself with a brand new boat to do some fishing. Well, a happy New Year.